Hi de Gallo. Well, today we're gonna jump right into some deep waters and take a look at Blankets by Craig Thompson. So, this is my low-res high content um, run of the week, but instead of just having a static image, we have to do a little bit of flip through with this. Now, there's a lot of different things we could break down in this story. Um, we ultimately this story is about um, a kid, a boy and a girl, teenage love, kind of the but that but balancing that against growing up and how unreasonable some of that stuff is. So the greater story is that the author Craig grows up in a pretty legalistic Christian home. Um, Maybe abusive is too strong of a word, but definitely overbearing and very difficult parents growing up. And so it follows him. I think he's 16, 17. He might be, maybe it was his senior year. Um, so during the winter break, his parents would always make him go to this big youth camp. And since his parents didn't have a lot of money, he was basically an outcast at this camp. And so he meets a girl who is another outcast. Um, Strikes up a relationship with her and goes to visit her. And the main part of the story is about the back and forth of that. And then once the visit is over, their relationship fades, and then he grows up. And so that's really, it's sad and sweet, and it's all the teenagey things. It's good stuff. But the thing I want to focus on here, because again, there's a lot of sides to this, is his religious upbringing, which there's a lot of stuff in there that I can relate to. I mean, he tells it really well that way. And I read the things that he went through as a kid, just really difficult things. And part of it is I look at this book and I see someone who's earnestly seeking God in the middle of bad Bible teaching. And I'll go through it, and it's a really great contrast. So here's this page here, and what he's doing is he burned up, because he's an artist, obviously, since he made the book, and he burned a bunch of his childhood art stuff, which I guess for lifelong artists, there's a big gap in my drawing thing, which I kind of covered in another video a little bit. But there's a lot of artists who burn their childhood stuff because it's embarrassing, or like a bad high school haircut, which is a common thing. But he does it for a different reason, because I think he's reading in Ecclesiastes where pursuing all these pleasures of life is useless and all this, and so he makes a decision to do this. And I've gone through stuff like this personally, where you think about this thing that you really like, and from a religious perspective, you're like, well, I don't want this to be an idol before God. And the balance is like, well, if it's just something that makes you happy, are you worshiping it? That that's the background. And then there's this purge here, which is really, really, I mean, a wonderful illustration of, yeah, of him kind of getting through that. And then it's balanced with, he goes back to when he was a kid, and this instance of his Bible teacher, Sunday school teacher, teaching the kids about, heaven and hell and salvation and stuff. And really, it's all based in fear. It's all based in how awful, and not focused on what Christianity should be focused on, where you focus on Jesus, who makes things better, who leaves the 99 to find the one, who there's a lot of really good things with Christianity, rather than scaring children um, about being alone and being burned up. And it's not good Bible teaching. Personally, some of the church experiences I had as a kid growing up, our church in our little town had some really pretty wonderful people at our church, who made a big difference in my life, and I'm really thankful for that. But that is one of the themes in this book, where continually over and over again he is confronted with his, he has this altruistic, earnestly seeking stuff going on, and it's butted up against like unthinking legalism, where you should do this because of duty, you should do this because of consequences, rather than for love of the Lord. And so that's kind of that stuff. And I look at this and look at his difficult situations, and I think about difficult situations in my own life, and I think, man, I would not want to go through this stuff, but I wouldn't change it. I think about a lot of the leaders. You're always hearing about some Christian leader doing something stupid or reprehensible or pretty disgusting, but it's these guys who've done the same thing most of their lives. And as difficult as it was to put all the time and effort into a master's degree and to jump into ministry, and then for that to blow up and to change into something else, it's hard to say this, but I think ultimately I'm thankful for it, because our whole faith is built around basically being gypsies. It's like you shouldn't seek peace and comfort in all those things, although the Lord can give you those things. It shouldn't be the goal of life to seek, all this stability. The Lord should be your stability, kind of a thing. And so these guys who are pastors for 50 years, these guys who do one thing for 50 years in ministry, um, I think you get comfortable and complacent and maybe entitled, and you see these leaders who are in such huge things of power, where they abuse that power because they're entitled to it. And the idea that everything is changing except for my faith, that's my comfort. And so the idea, it's difficult, but I never want to stop being stretched. I never want to stop growing in that, because if you're not in a place where you're, not maybe not in a masochistic way, just seeking out all this harm and everything, but if you're not constantly in a place where you are like not questioning, but a little bit like, man, Lord, I am trying my best, are you there, that kind of stuff. If you're not constantly fighting that, how are you growing? Because my heart in things, I want like a 5 stall garage, where I go out and buy a 67 Camaro, which is the car that my dad had as a kid, and we build it together. Or I buy a gigantic RV and take around hot rods around around and drag race and do all that stuff. And I think of the wife and the boy traveling with us as we drag race all over the place in a big RV, where they could all be a part of that, but still have the thing. I or just all those things that just. But I'm struggling here to put it into words, but I think you probably catch the idea. What I'm trying to get is, I never want to stop being pushed, and it's difficult, and it's not very fun, and I want comfort. I want ease. I want, all this wholeness that that really, in a certain sense, can make you lazy at the end. And I guess if the alternative is you get so complacent that your faith turns to duty, and I mean, just, literally and figuratively, and all the synonyms of that. But I don't ever want to stop being pushed. And that, I guess that's the thing. That's the alternative here, because I think about, all this different stuff that's going on with this guy and what he goes through, and ultimately he gives up his faith. And I think about, like, how, how did I not give up my faith? And I think it's this idea that I learned to not seek comfort and seek the Lord, that my comfort would be in the Lord. And not, again, I probably said it 3 or 4 times, it's not easy. It's really, really difficult. But it's caused me to rely on him and brought me closer to him. Again, these things aren't perfect. These things don't happen in a vacuum. But the alternative here uh, of giving everything up, and the struggles of all that, um, I don't want that either. So yeah, this is the thing for this week. I guess I do. As far as art goes, I really like this black and white style. Um, there's a lot of stuff that he does well that I really enjoy. If you're gonna pick this book up, there are definitely some racy parts to it, so maybe take care a little bit. But yeah, if you're wanting a challenge and you're wanting to balance your faith up against, why do I have faith? It is definitely a good read for that. Um, but yeah, Craig Thompson, Blankets, and again, and if you're on the other end where you're responsible to teach people, um, again, with the whole theme of what I'm talking about, keep growing and keep changing, because when your faith does turn into duty, and your faith is a deal where it's just this rote thing where you foist it on others, you're going to get stuff like this where people don't really have it, they earnestly seek it, and it feels like ashes to them. So that's the big takeaway of this. Boop.